Ever feel like happiness is like a puzzle you just can't quite figure out? Like you must need like a little extra push to really get it. Well, that's what we're diving into today with The Courage to Be Happy.
What I like about this book is how they use that back and forth dialogue. It's like we're sitting in on a conversation between this young teacher who is actually a student of this wise philosopher, and they're really going at it, debating, Adlerian psychology.
Yeah, and what's cool is that the young teacher, they call him the youth in the book, he's trying to figure out how to actually use these ideas, these big concepts in his everyday life. He's skeptical. He even says quackery at one point because he's frustrated that just knowing the concepts isn't like instantly fixing everything.
Which I think is where a lot of us get tripped up, right? We want that quick fix, the magic bullet for happiness.
Yeah.
But this book, it's different. It's not a Band-Aid. It's more like, a total system upgrade for your brain.
That's a great analogy. So instead of being told to just like think positive, Adlerian psychology is more about like figuring out the why, the reasons behind what we do, which can then help make real changes.
Yeah. And one of the core ideas is that it's our goals that drive us, not just, the things you've been through. The book compares it to painting your past as like all the different colors you have, but your goals, those are the brush strokes, the things that actually make the picture.
Okay, so say more about that because that seems really important. For someone listening, what does it mean to think about their past as the paints and their goals as the brush strokes?
It means you've got more control than you think. You're not just stuck with however things turned out before. You get to decide what colors to use, what kind of picture you're making right now, by picking goals that really matter to you.
That's powerful. It makes me think about that triangular column idea from the book, too. It's so easy to fall into the blame trap.
Totally. One side of the triangle is like, that person over there is the problem, and then the other side is all, woe is me. We've all been there.
But then there's that other side, the one people forget about, but it can really change things.
Right. That side is all about, what can I do from here? And for someone who's listening who wants to actually take action and make progress, this is huge. It's like shifting from staring at the problem to focusing on the solution.
So if there's something you're struggling with right now, instead of getting stuck on why it happened or whose fault it is, the question becomes, okay, what's one step I can take today to start moving forward?
Yes. That simple change in how you see things, from complaining to doing something, that's a big part of what this book is calling The Courage to Be Happy. It's about realizing you always have a choice in how to respond, even when things are tough. And this whole idea about taking charge, about zeroing in on what you can actually control, well, that pops up a lot in the book, especially when it comes to like dealing with other people. Remember the youth, the teacher, he's having a tough time in his classroom.
Yeah, he's really struggling.
And the philosopher, he keeps circling back to this idea of respect.
Okay, so for someone listening, let's unpack that. We're not talking about just like basic manners here, are we? What does this deeper kind of respect actually look like, especially when you're dealing with someone who's difficult?
It's about really getting them, seeing them for who they really are, not for who we want them to be or who we think they should be. It's about understanding their world, even if we don't agree with them.
Like walking in their shoes a bit.
Yeah, exactly. And, the book really digs into how this plays out when things get tough, especially with what it calls problem behavior.
Right, so the youth is getting more and more frustrated with his students. He feels like nothing he does is working.
And that's when the philosopher drops this idea of the 5 stages of problem behavior.
Oh, yeah. I remember this part. It's easy to just slap a label on a kid, call them difficult or whatever, but this idea, it gives you a whole different way to see what's going on, like what's under the surface.
It's like you suddenly understand this whole new language. Instead of just reacting to what they're saying or doing, you're picking up on the message underneath. And the thing is, that first stage is called the demand for admiration.
So a kid who's acting up, maybe being disruptive, it's not always because they're trying to be disrespectful. They might actually just be desperate for attention, for a way to feel seen.
Exactly. Think about it. How many times have you, even as an adult, done something because you felt invisible, like nobody was listening? Maybe you were extra critical at work or just shut down at home.
Right, like we all need to feel connected. And when that need isn't met, sometimes we start speaking this other language, the language of problem behavior. But the important thing is, it's not really about the behavior itself, it's about what's driving it.
And when you get that, when you understand the need, that's when you can actually respond in a helpful way. That's when you can address the root of the problem, not just the symptoms. And this is where the book gets really useful, because it talks about really listening. Not just waiting for your turn to talk, but really trying to see the world through their eyes.
Putting yourself in their shoes, right? Trying to get what it's like to be them in that moment. It reminds me of the time when it's like we forget other people are going through things too, you know? But when we can just stop and really see things from their side, even just for a minute, it can change everything.
Yeah, for sure. And this book, it doesn't just leave us hanging with these big ideas, you know? It gives us some actual tools to use this respect, this understanding, even when it's hard.
Okay, so let's make this real. Someone's listening, they're dealing with something tough, a fight with their partner, maybe things are rough at work. Where do they even start with this respect thing, especially when they're feeling angry or ignored?
Well, the book has this really interesting idea. It says, instead of trying to change the other person, try changing yourself.
Whoa. Okay, that's a big one. How do you even do that, like when you're in the middle of it all?
It starts by noticing what's going on inside. Remember the 5 stages of problem behavior we were talking about? Figuring out where you're at, what you need in that moment, that's the first thing.
So before we try to figure out their deal, we gotta check ourselves.
Right. Because a lot of times how we react to other people, it's more about us than them.
No.
So if you're feeling all riled up or defensive, that's information. What's missing for you? Are you feeling disrespected, like nobody hears you? Not appreciated?
Okay, so let's say you figure that out. Then what? Do you just blurt out, hold on, I'm feeling super unappreciated here?
That's where those communication tools the book talks about come in handy, like using I statements. Instead of pointing the finger with you this, you that, which can make someone defensive, you talk about what's going on for you.
So not, you're always late, but something like, when I'm kept waiting, it makes me feel stressed because I'm not sure when we can leave. It's about owning your feelings, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's just a small change in how you say it, but it totally changes how it feels. And when you come from that place where you're aware of yourself and you're being real, you're in a much better place to actually listen to them, to try and get where they're coming from, even if you don't agree.
So for anyone listening who's feeling stuck, like they keep having the same arguments or misunderstandings over and over, remember this. You've got more power than you think. Instead of trying to change the other person, start with yourself. Figure out what's going on inside. Really listen and talk about your needs in a way that's real and respectful.
It's like that idea from the book, happiness takes courage. Courage to be open, courage to own your part, courage to show up with respect even when it's tough. But it's so worth it. Better relationships, knowing yourself better, and in the end, a life that feels like it means something.
So be brave out there and see what happens. We'll be back next time with a whole new topic to explore together. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the audio podcast. You're here with my friend Jordan, and I'm Ashley. We hope today's episode brought some light to your day. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Share it with a friend and keep spreading the good vibes. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep shining.